I made my last Samsung shutter lag video a couple of years ago, where I put the Galaxy S22 Ultra against the S23 Ultra. And at that time, I personally didn't see much of an issue with the shutter speeds on either phone, so I considered the issue to be laid to rest. But apparently a lot of you don't agree.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
So due to popular demand, we are going to run a new round of shutter speed tests, this time between the S24 and S25 Ultra phones, to see if Samsung is indeed making any meaningful improvements in this area. And even though this battle of capture speeds will be mainly fought between Samsung's latest and greatest, we will also do some small sampling against the OnePlus 13 and iPhone 15 Pro Max, so be sure to stick around for that. Or just use the timestamps I hopefully remembered to include to skip to the parts of the video that are of most interest to you.
That's much appreciated.
So the term shutter speed can mean different things to different people. For the purpose of our testing, it means how quickly the phone's camera is able to capture an image after the shutter button is pressed. We will also look at the quality of those captured images to see which phone is able to capture the cleaner shot of a moving subject. And since oftentimes when trying to capture a moving subject, you don't have a lot of time to make manual adjustments, we will be going full on point and shoot, and not taking any advantage of Samsung's sweet manual, pro, or expert RAW modes. We will also mostly be using all of the phone's default camera settings because that is how most people use their phones, and most settings shouldn't impact shutter speeds anyway, except for one. Since you are watching this video, I'm assuming you are interested in shutter speed and probably want the fastest capture speed possible, and to achieve that, we do have to change one thing. In the camera settings under Camera Assist, there is a setting for Quick Tap Shutter, and turning this on will capture a photo as soon as the shutter button is touched instead of when it is released. Changing this setting really isn't a big deal, and I always recommend turning it on, especially if you often find yourself trying to capture moving subjects. The only issue is that in order to change the Camera Assistant settings, the Camera Assistant has to be downloaded. And it has to be downloaded from Samsung's Galaxy App Store, not the Google Play Store. So if you want to take advantage of the Quick Tap Shutter setting or any of the other Camera Assistant settings, that is what you must do.
Good to know.
Now that you know about the settings, let's talk about the test. In the past when I've done these tests, we have usually done a rapid shutter speed test where we saw how many images each phone could manually capture in a short period of time. However, we won't be doing that test this time around because these days, if you want to engage in some burst photography on a Galaxy phone, you can simply swipe down on the shutter button. And doing this will allow you to capture more images of your fast-moving subject than you ever could tapping the shutter yourself. So for test number 1, we will indeed be using both phones' burst mode feature to capture a fast-moving subject, using all 4 of the rear-facing cameras. All right, it's a nice, bright, overcast day, which is perfect for what we're trying to do. I've got Wanda over here, ready to go. Got my tripod and my cameraman set up here. My cameraman and son, Mark. Say hi, Mark.
Hello, hello.
All right, let's do this.
A few hours later.
So the results are in, and because I value your time, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about any one given shot. So if you want to take a closer look at any given shot, feel free to pause, pinch, and zoom.
Everybody got that?
So Mark used the burst shot on both phones to capture Wanda as she passed through the frame doing a speed of 35 miles per hour. Looking at the shots coming out of the 0.6x ultra-wide sensor, both shots look almost like they came out of the same camera, with little to no difference between them. And it's the same story with the 200 megapixel primary camera. Even the double up blur on the gas cap is almost exactly the same. And once again, it's a similar story with the 3x sensor. Although I would like to point out that the zoom was good enough on both phones to be able to look through the car and read the sign on the other side, which is pretty crazy. Finally, on the final shot with the 5x telephoto sensor, I do think we get a little bit cleaner shot out of the S25, with the wheels and gas cap looking a bit less blurred. And oh yeah, the sign is even easier to read now. So with the exception of the 5x camera, which looked a little better on the 25 Ultra, the captured images coming out of both phones were very similar. One thing worth noting in this test is that the distance between the car and camera did vary from shot to shot. This sometimes caused the shots at certain distances to look less clear than at other distances, since the car was passing through the frame at different speeds depending on the shot. But since the purpose of this test was to compare the quality of the images between the two phones, I think the results are still relevant.
Agreed.
For our second test, I went with the metronome test, and unlike the last test, which just looked at the quality of the captured images, this test will test image quality and shutter speed to see how much delay we experience between the shutter button being pressed and the camera taking the shot. And I will do this by attempting to tap both shutters simultaneously as the pendulum passes through the center while ticking at a speed of 50 beats per minute. And we will do this in both good light and low light conditions once again with all 4 rear-facing cameras. Got it? good.
Many hours later.
So looking at the first set of results taken in good light with the ultra-wide lens, we see all shots produce similar results in both appearance, and timing differences were within margin of error. Using the primary lens, we see similar and virtually indistinguishable results from both phones. We see similar and nearly identical results with the 3x sensor, and I apologize if this is starting to get repetitive, but we also see very similar results from the 5x sensor.
Oh, I don't even know what I'm doing here. We're wasting our time.
Moving into the low light results, while there certainly isn't a huge difference between the phones, I do think the S24 shot looks a little better by bringing a little more light into the shot. And we see similar output with the primary lens, with the S24 again doing a little better with exposure. Using the 3x sensor, we go back to the shots looking nearly identical. And using the 5x telephoto sensor, the S25 Ultra is finally able to pick up a small victory. Capture speeds are still within error margins, and the images coming out of the S25 are definitely a little cleaner. Finally, as promised, I did want to get at least a small sample size with a couple of other phones to see how they compared. First, looking at the shots taken in good light with the primary sensor on the OnePlus 13, we definitely see cleaner images than with any of the sensors on either of the Samsung devices. And these shots were taken with the default setting, so we didn't even use the OnePlus's action mode setting. And the shots coming out of the iPhone 15 Pro Max look even better. I mean, they actually look so good, if you didn't know any better, you would probably think the pendulum wasn't moving at all.
Most impressive.
So now that all the results are in, what have we learned? In the metronome test, the shutter speed on both Samsung phones was pretty quick. Because I am not a robot and anticipation is a real thing, many of the shots were actually captured before the pendulum hit center. But even with that margin of error, it seems the shots were captured pretty quick after I hit the shutter button, and I would say with little or no perceivable lag. So for both phones, I would say capture speeds are quite good, but I would also say there really isn't much difference between them. As for the quality of the shots, both phones' results were also similar, with seemingly very little improvement coming out of the 25 Ultra. But what might even be more concerning is that both the OnePlus and iPhone were able to pull better quality results with their primary lenses, and I wasn't even using the best settings on the OnePlus or using the latest iPhone.
Ouch.
Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I personally haven't found shutter speeds to be much of an issue for the last couple of S-line generations, so the lack of improvement doesn't bother me all that much. That said, the results don't lie. And if you are someone who has experienced capture speed issues with the 24 Ultra, it doesn't appear the 25 Ultra will be the solution you're looking for. And even though we didn't take a lot of shots with the OnePlus or iPhone, it does appear that both of those phones might be a better option for people who partake in a lot of action photography. And if you would like to see me put the 25 Ultra up against either of those phones in more extensive testing, let me know down in the comments.
Got it.
Well, that's all the information I have for one day. As always, I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Rando Tech Info, signing out.